Welcome to the Promise Podcast, where we discuss how brands can deliver on their promise with a great customer experience and business impact. I'm your host, Harald Lamberts, and in each episode, I talk to business executives, thought leaders, and founders about how to achieve effective collaboration across departments, such as brand, marketing, product development, customer experience, and support, all with one goal in mind: a seamless customer journey with great business results. Today, we're speaking with Daniel Heer, founder of Zeotap customer data platforms. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, how are you?
Daniel, we'll do your proper introduction in a second, but we always start with this first question. What is your favorite brand in terms of customer experience, and how do they deliver on their promise? Why? Yeah.
It's honestly Amazon, a well-known large brand. If you have an issue with a product, and you call their hotline, they know why you call. So you don't have to go through this annoying process of, speaking to three people to solve your problem. They know why you call. They somehow figured from the click journey you're doing until you call them. They basically ask a bunch of click-driven questions, right, in a way. What product are you calling for, and so on. So you have a very quick, very efficient call, and the process of refunding you, of sending back posts of articles or products you don't like or that are broken, is super seamless. When you go to the post prints the etiquette, right, and it's all done. It's really a seamless omni-channel journey. It's amazing.
And it helps their own efficiency as well, I'm sure. So well done. Yeah, it's a good example of great customer experience and internal cost efficiency combined. Yeah?
Correct.
Cool. Which I guess you guys are all about as well. So it's a good analogy.
Fine.
All right. Daniel, let me introduce you briefly, and then maybe you can add to that. Daniel here is now the founder and CEO of Zeotap. But before that, years ago, he attempted to challenge Facebook with founding a social network called MyFable, if I'm saying it correctly. And then after that, he joined Vodafone Germany to really focus on data-driven marketing and also helping the sales strategy rollout. Some examples being call center restructuring and cost efficiency gains made there. And I am guessing this was all around data and customer data already, and this inspired him to found Zeotap, a customer data platform, which is now 10 years running and really making some headway in the market. So with that, welcome, Daniel.
Thanks for having me, Harold.
Yeah, cool. So, the thing we share between us is, of course, that we both try to address organizational silos in the companies that we support. And maybe you more on a data pocket level and we more on a customer journey level, but it's pretty similar in terms of like, how do we operate efficiently with these silos as a known. But before we go into that, maybe you could talk a little bit about your history in your career that I just mentioned and how you got here. Like, what was it at Vodafone probably? Like, what that really inspired you to make your career around this and address these issues?
I mean, as you said, this is my second company. The first one, actually, we didn't know of not Salesforce. We didn't know of Facebook, so we didn't aim to compete with them. We just were they were. It was the very early days when I think they were mostly still focusing on universities in the US.
Yep.
But we were excited about the promise of offering everyone the tool to share content, videos, photos, everything you do right on social networks and create that at scale. Frankly, I was way too young. The story of the young founder is usually for the press. It happens, but it's rare, and I failed. Learned a lot, but told myself first, I'm not a consumer guy. I'm probably better for an enterprise business. That was a gut feeling. And secondly, I didn't really understand what an enterprise was all about or is all about. So I went, finished my studies, which I'd interrupted for the first startup, and went to Vodafone for some, just happened to be. And at Vodafone, I realized the immense power of data. Telcos in general, that's not Vodafone specific, obviously, have the access point to the internet, the network access. They know about demographic data. They know what apps we use. They know our billing records, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And we use data obviously only internally, right, to make sure that how can we further drive value for our customer in terms of leading to an upsell, ideally, or cross sell, right? That's a company perspective. And how can we avoid churn? How can we look into
Yeah.
churn prevention? I worked long in churn prevention, thinking super analytically. How can we start the churn prevention journey not in months 18, like before
Yeah.
midnight, but like much earlier? And this was all driven on data. So
Yeah.
the realization I had was, all right, one, here's how important data is. Two, you need to overcome operational or organizational inertia to really use the data, because at the end, still people in a way have to work together to use it. That's where
Yeah.
always the pain comes from because of politics, right? But if you can manage that, it's a gold mine, right?
Yeah.
Now, after 5 years of Vodafone, I had enough of politics, but the good news is I learned to understand how enterprises work and operate. So for me, it was in a way the next natural step to, build a company again. I'm not a good employee, right? I'm a bit too impatient to be a normal employee. And I want to challenge the status quo and change and build, and that's not possible in a corporate usually. So then went back to Berlin, worked 1 year in a scale up, which was amazing, great culture. I was a bit lucky also. The company was really on fire. Worked in mobile gaming, and I went into corporate sales, enterprise sales, which I never did before. I was more the analytical like guy, and yeah, sold into enterprise in the telco and media sector, and then got the idea from the combination of my Vodafone and my let's say startup experience to build Zeotap in the early days.
What was the initial idea? Was it?
The technology was interestingly the same as a CDP, but the use case
Yeah.
was a very different one. So the initial idea was to help telcos and other owners of large data assets to monetize that asset not only
Oh, yeah.
internally, like what I did
Yeah.
at Vodafone, but externally by bringing
Yeah.
together data in a safe spot. So in a way, unify a lot of third-party data from telcos, marketplaces, apps, OEMs, and so on. Obviously, solve for privacy problems, create some kind of 360 view, and then help brands that naturally don't have a lot of data, like CPGs or some retailers, depending on the business model, access that data in a privacy-friendly way and use it to better drive a better experience, right? Some call it
Yeah.
targeting, but targeting is a bit narrow. The technology is
So it's more
exactly
like an
this.
internal dashboard or internal
No,
tool to
no, not
analyze and act. Okay.
no, not for dashboarding. Dashboarding is not really actionable,
Yeah.
right? People
Yeah.
always want dashboards, but then they don't use them. That's the reality, right? No. It was really to say, okay, here's some data. When P&G wants to target male 18 to 30 for the next shampoo for
Yeah.
men, rather than wasting budget on people who don't care for that shampoo, right? Really making sure through social channels, through programmatic channels, address these people based on highly qualified, well unified data.
Yeah.
Now, the underlying technology is exactly the same, just that in a CDP use case, you usually stitch 5 to 10 silos of a brand. In
Yeah.
the third-party data business we built initially, we stitched data from 70 companies, right? So we had to build a very sophisticated technology while there was no GDPR, which meant we had to deal with German privacy law, Dutch privacy law, Spanish privacy law, Italian privacy law, French privacy law, and British privacy law, which are all very different, or which used to be very different.
Yeah.
And as a German company, obviously, we think we understand privacy. So then when GDPR kicked in May 2018, we were super prepared because we had served for
Yeah.
much worse in a way.
Yeah. So at least you already done the work, basically. Yeah.
Yep, sort of.
Pretty much. Okay. Hey, and maybe for not everybody being familiar, can you, in layman terms, just explain the value of a CDP? Like, why do you need one?
Yeah, a CDP is a customer data platform. It's a bit of a middleware software. The idea is that large enterprises have silo teams, and because teams operate in silos, also data usually is created and managed and worked on in silos.
Yeah.
That creates a bunch of let's say challenges. One, usually business calls the IT or sends email and says, I need this kind of data because I want to run a campaign and have a certain thesis, right? And then the IT takes 4 weeks, and then the business didn't do the briefing accurately, as IT people are very accurate usually and precise. And then 2 months go in. I had this at Vodafone all the time, by the way, right? And then there's this back and forth with XLS files or other ways of transporting data. And then maybe competition ran a campaign, it's too late. By the time the IT delivers the file, it's too late, right? So there's a lot of manual effort of sending data back and forth. Two, the IT constantly has that with different teams, and they need to update manually all the API pipes into different software stack, and they're never on top of it, and they're always late, and they're always resource constrained. That's the internal view. The external view is on the customer experience. The typical example is very easy to understand. You check a product online, say a blue pair of trousers. Next day, you walk through the city with your wife or your girlfriend. You see the same trousers. You pay for it. You buy it. You pay for it. Use your loyalty card. But the online team doesn't speak to the offline team. The data is not integrated. So you keep being retargeted for a product you already bought. Means budget is wasted, right? Yeah. Why? Because
the customer experience is annoying. I mean, as well.
It's annoying, and it's correct. It's not terrible.
It's not super annoying, but it doesn't feel clever.
The ad slot is wasted. Wherever you're retargeted on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, right? It's wasted. And it's sort of annoying, right? And the experience is not great. Or high value customers call the hotline because they have a service complaint or they have a question, actually which may lead to an upsell.
Yeah.
And they have to wait the same time that a low value customer is waiting. Yeah. In the age of data, not sure this makes sense. Why? Again, because the hotline software doesn't know the value of the customer or the churn score of the customer, right? Another example is I go to the website. I see exactly the same as my wife on the website. Whatever, shoe brand, furniture brand. In the age of data, it does not make sense to have the same website for everyone. It just doesn't make sense, right?
So personalization.
Go
ahead.
What a CDP does is it aims to drive commercial outcomes for use cases by making sure that the data that needs to be available, either in batch or in real time, is available on a unified level. So depending on the use cases, CDP integrate with different data silos. Not all of them, that's bullshit, right? That takes too long. But those that are needed to execute on the use cases. And then the data is sort of pulled in automatically all the time. So whenever there's a new update of the customer, whenever someone went to the website, did something, called the hotline, whatever it is, the 360 profile, which is dynamic and growing in time, is updated. And then all teams that need the 360 profile, either for manual decisions or for algorithmic decisions, can use the data without having to bother with the IT, which leads to two things. One, to a complete automation of this annoying back and forth between IT and business. And two, it leads to, over time, to better experiences and ideally more money, right, for the brand. More upsell, cross-sell, less churn, better service.
So it basically helps organizations to be much more relevant across the channels, right? Based on connecting the right data sets that are maybe scattered around the company. And it's also quite realistic in the sense that you can't fix the fact that there are silos in the organization, so then if you really on a use case level stitch the relevant data pieces together, you can also be successful with this without having to migrate all your data in the entire company to a new platform, for example.
Correct.
Which takes years, basically.
You're addressing a good point. What actually happens, and we realize this at some point, is you still operate in a silo. Now every silo gets better over time, right?
Yeah.
The paid media silo stops retargeting people who already bought offline, as an example, right? The call center silo better prioritizes, let's say, high value or high churn risk customers. Now, what should happen over time is not only the silos optimize of how they use data and become more relevant to the user, to use your words. Now, ideally, also the teams start thinking in end-to-end journeys. So you have an end-to-end welcome journey. You have an end-to-end churn prevention journey. The issue is still that you can have the perfect technology and the perfect data. It's still a human, right? And the call center boss may not like the paid media boss because they're both fighting for the same career upgrade, right?
Yeah.
Or someone is on vacation or someone is sick. So in the end, it's a mixture of how well the humans collaborate, unless AI replaces all that, right?
Yeah.
And not just the data.
Yeah. So you're saying, but this helps in multiple levels. I think you listed a few good examples. So one is personalization. For example, you see a different website than your wife because you have different interests maybe in some areas. The triaging and the customer service. So like high value, low value, not only waiting time, but also directing people to the right person probably as well. So more first time right and longer and getting to the high value customers faster. And also excluding buyers from ads so that you are more relevant and not wasting any sponsored budget is a couple. Another one that I think is also, of course, there's been a huge debate about first party data and cookie free world and Google deciding A or B. Is that also something you're addressing, helping organizations be more autonomous in operating based on first party data alone, or how do you see that?
Yeah, let me be very candid here. There's a lot of CDP talk in the market that CDPs help brands rely less on the cookie. That is true over time. It's not that the CDP adds a magic identifier that sort of replaces the cookie, like a proxy or something. But what happens if you implement a CDP, if you do it right, you go through a transformational journey. And journeys are painful, right? It's normal. Humans don't like change that much. It takes time to learn new stuff and so on. Now, what happens is in the journey, people realize, oh, actually data makes a difference. So how do I collect data? Maybe I'm not asking for consent. We recently landed an insurance, and then they realized they bought the CDP, but they don't have sufficient consent maturity in certain areas. Let's say they have good email marketing consent, but very low penetration of Facebook consent, right? As an example. So as this journey evolves, people realize actually in order to really use the power of data, they need to collect data. To collect data, they need to ask for consent. Point one. Point two, they're making data like a top level strategy, like almost a CEO agenda. Okay, how can we capture data? Right. If we're a publisher, we need to incentivize the user to log in, because when we log in, we get their email and we get their consent, right? As a brand, how can we incentivize the user to share more information with us, right? Now, the more IDs you collect, whether it's an email, a phone number, a mobile ID, which is unique to the in-app traffic, right? Not the phone number mobile ID, but the so-called MAID, mobile ad ID, right? These are all alternative identifiers to the cookie. Now, they will not magically fall from the sky. The brands, the companies, they need to find ways how to incentivize the user to share the data, right? In a balanced way. So over time, as the CDP journey matures and organizations start picking it up, running use cases, and they realize, oh, we don't have enough first-party data, they will naturally build on their own data. And that then over time reduces the dependency on the cookie. We do differentiate. We are the only CDP in town that provides within the CDP additional third-party data, because we have the data business, right? So we give the brand for the existing customers maybe an additional email, an additional cookie, which doesn't solve the cookie problem, or an additional MAID. Others don't do that, right? But it only goes so far, right? We will not change their world entirely with enrichment, or we call it ID extension. They really need to make collection of data a first-party priority or first-class citizen.
Yeah, but with implementing use cases, you're making your own case stronger. So it also incentivizes you to work with it. So I think that's I'm asking because the main purpose of this podcast series is also to really understand how brands can deliver on their promise, and that's why it's called the Promise Podcast. And we're really looking at, okay, how does that connect a brand department, a marketing department, a sales department, a customer service department, and the agile teams who built the website and all that, because ultimately it's an orchestration of all these efforts to make sure that the whole entire customer journey, of course, is run properly and seamlessly. So, and I think thanks for those examples, because it's pretty clear how that contributes to it. Yeah. So can you maybe also name, because you mentioned also the politics of organizations, who are you working with? Because ultimately, of course, you need to kind of like connect the different departments rather than strengthen single silo. How does that? Can you maybe share a few words on how that typically starts and how that works from there?
Yeah, one of the learnings is this. It's quite important to start simple. Organizations they buy a CDP, they think it's expensive, and then they want to create a moonshot use case. That makes sense, but not immediately. Because a CDP is rather heavy to deploy in general. You can be fast, or it can take longer, but it's still heavy because it's multi-team, multi-source, and so on. So it's very important to start simple. Now, simple use cases depend obviously on the challenge the companies want to solve. Often we find it in paid media, not always, but often it's in paid media, because a lot of budget is wasted on existing customers that can't buy or shouldn't buy. Imagine you have a person who constantly sends back products, right? The high returner. We call him Rob Returner, right? Man, don't put Rob into a targeting campaign because anyway he's going to send back and he's going to be negative on gross margin for you, right? So the simple suppression use case is a good one to start with.
Yeah.
Once you have success, it's a joint effort between the vendor, in this case us, and the brand to put that on a slide and create a success story and then share that with other teams. What we do see is there's always an inertia, there's always the not invented here syndrome. People may not have been involved in the decision to buy a CDP. They don't know what it is, right? They're like, oh no, I have my Christmas campaign coming up. I cannot test something new. What if this goes wrong? Give people a reason to consider, right? Which is the success case. Take them by the hand and let them speak to other customers, even though you already won the case, right? Let them speak to other customers who did this in a similar industry before, right? Use a bit of pressure from the boss. That's always helpful, right? And then in the end, at some point, people will realize, actually, it makes sense to be more data-driven. Whether then it's Zeotap or any other data-driven tool is a secondary class thought in a way, you know? But honestly, there's...
And the results.
Yeah, obviously the result. CDP is not easy to do. It's not like an email tool where you immediately see the success, either the email is opened or not. It's middleware, right? So middleware is always a bit counterintuitive to show results in a way, you know? So it's the hardest challenge around CDP is honestly always making sure that people actually use it to change their routines.
And that's another argument for maybe starting with a selected set of use cases, right? Like, because otherwise you say, okay, so many departments are going to work with it. There's the organizational resistance and inertia maybe, and so if you say, okay, we take, for example, 2 or 3 examples that you mentioned 10 minutes ago, and we're just going to focus on that, then of course you also have a chance of only getting those small group of people fully engaged on that, and then once you have the results, maybe scale it, because that's actually pretty similar to what we do with customer journey management. Is we also never start with all the journeys in the whole company across all the departments, because you're changing the way of working and you're changing the cross-functional collaboration between teams. That's already requires your full attention to get everybody engaged. So it's very smart. We did this for a big bank recently, to do it with one journey, fix the issues, show the results, and then scale it to 3 and 5 and 10 and go from there. Yeah, so very, very sensible.
I agree. We do like to partner with consultants because, frankly, at the end of the day, we're still a software vendor, right? Yes, we have seen it 40 times, right? And we've learned our lessons in a way. And it's a super hands-on thing to deploy CDP and make it successful. But consultants come with a different skill set. They come with their frameworks. They come with their 2x2 prioritization matrices and so on. So that's also why the big and the small consultants are usually involved in the CDP. Yeah. And it's good to also involve them in a use case boost.
Yeah, you need each other, yeah? Like the consultants can't achieve it without the tool, and the tool doesn't work without adoption. So I think it needs both. Yeah. So it's it's very recognizable. I mean, we have fantastic customer journey management tools as well that we work with, but if you don't really focus on adopting the way of working around it, then the tool itself is not going to fix it. So it needs both, and it needs the management commitment as well. Like, I'm not sure. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit more. Like, who is the main sponsor? Like, who do you need? Who is usually most interested in making this happen? Is that the CMO, or like who would you say normally is really the big architect or sponsor behind this?
Yeah, usually you need actually both. You need someone like a CIO and CTO to ensure that there's capacity to implement, deploy together with us or an SI, right? Someone who deploys could be a large consultant like Accenture, Deloitte, or could be a smaller boutique agency. But you also need the IT alone is not enough. Because then you would face a situation where the business doesn't know of the existence or doesn't have any use cases planned for it, right? And then then it will look like, oh, IT puts this on us because they think we're stupid, right? If you only have business the other way around, the IT will say, oh, we have no capacity right now. So in a way, sometimes it's the chief digital officer if that person has a P&L under his belly and his or her belly. Sometimes it's the CIO that pays the bill. But you need both at the table, right, to drive change.
So we when we roll out customer journey management, it's really about, okay, the whole customer life cycle of an energy client, for example, or the whole onboarding of a mortgage client, or
Yeah.
that's typically can be a journey that lasts a few weeks or a few months. The examples you mentioned are also maybe very transactional or like micro journeys, if you will. How do you see the two be connected? For example, I can imagine journey management can really help spot all the opportunities across the entire journey. You address maybe very specific channel improvements, but also driven with data pockets across the entire journey. Like, how do you see the two going hand in hand? Do you have ideas around that?
I mean, the ultimate outcome or ideal target state is obviously a macro journey across. Let's say you have the ideal customer journey from this guy's welcomed as a new customer, from this guy's churn prevented and successfully retained and over time upsold because he or she became a fan of the brand, right? That's ideal. That requires a lot of maturity, both in terms of, in a way, philosophy, right? Is the next career move the most important for a meeting? Or is the perfect customer journey the most important, right? How are the incentives structured? Are teams incentivized to collaborate with the CDP? That's one of the things we try to achieve, that the companies involve CDP outcomes into their OKRs, as an example. Are the bosses incentivized to have a quarterly check-in with us and the teams, right? When you get to that understanding that philosophy, aligned philosophy in the execution on it, then you can think about macro journeys, right?
Yeah.
But to get to a macro journeys, as I said before, you need to start in a way, crawl, walk, run, the typical stuff that consultants say. It's very true.
Yeah.
The macro journey is like the wet dream. And I think, in the age of AI, because look, a super AI agent doesn't care if it's better to send an email, a WhatsApp, or a call. They will do whatever works best to convert the customer and drive a great experience.
Yeah.
The human, no, it's my email. I have to send an email because it's my email, right? An AI agent doesn't care. So I think as AI emerges and becomes sort of a super agent across touch points and the underlying journeys, the journeys will get better.
Then who is the person configuring the AI? That's another question.
No, the vision we have is this. Imagine a super AI agent who you give a target function. You say, like, listen, Zoe, find all people that I can upsell by 10% in the next 6 months and design the ideal journey for them. I don't care if it's email, chatbot, WhatsApp, Facebook, Google, Instagram, whatever. Just do what is maximizing the outcome. Zoe doesn't care about politics, career moves. Zoe never gets lazy, never gets tired, right? All you need to do that is have a lot of data on previous interactions.
Yeah. Because it needs the data to work with,
Correct.
So because it bases its decisions on what worked in the past. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's definitely very interesting, and I think also, it. Of course, there's also value in having some sort of predictable experience, but we'll find out, I guess. Yeah, like what is the optimum between
the future will show.
Exactly. For sure. Yeah, maybe a nice bridge on. I can imagine also in general, and you're now calling the super agent Zoe. But in general, like, what's your view on AI with this? Because I can imagine what you offer to your clients is also more universal customer data access to all your channel teams. Once you have this in place, it's also enabling in AI in general, of course, to be much more efficient in acting on that. Do you maybe have one or two interesting anecdotes on that, on how that could to give people and listen to this podcast also a little bit of a peek in the future of where this might be heading?
Yeah, I'm going to answer CDP specifically, right? Or customer experience specifically. So my co-founder, my technical co-founder, Pajol, always, he sees a two-way street, right, around AI and CDP. One, CDP for AI means because you have a lot of good unified data in the CDP, and because you've cleaned it, you've structured it, you've unified it, it's a good, fast input to the AI model. Because the truth is, with AI models, everybody talks about the great magic and a model can do. 70% of it is actually painful because you need to clean the data, you need to label it so the model can understand and read it. And depending on what maturity of data you have in the CDP, it can fast track your time to modeling in a way, right? So you're not losing 6 months to train and to actually feed them, or to actually be able to feed a model, because it's already in a way done in the CDP if the CDP has the right amount of data and if it is labeled in an AI-ready way, right? That's first part of the street. So the outcome is faster time to modeling, right?
Yeah.
The second way is using AI for CDP. It's the opposite of the road.
Yeah.
So CDP journeys can be really cumbersome, right? It takes time to deploy CDP. It requires human interaction. You need to map data, so from the CDP vendor's taxonomy to the client's taxonomy. You need to design an ID strategy. Once it's set up and live, humans need to think through, oh, what data do I have in the CDP? Let me think through a journey that I can automatically set up in the journey orchestration tool of the CDP. That all is sort of limited by time, human will, and human sort of mental, muscle power, right? Mental power. AI can automate the ingestion of the data. It can automatically match between their taxonomy and our taxonomy. AI can predict the ideal use case based on the data you've ingested. So it would scan the data and offer a few use cases that make sense that the human may never think of, right? Because the human can't understand the data to the degree a model can. The AI can predict certain journeys, and I'm not talking about a super agent right now. I'm talking about, okay, here's like 3 journeys that make sense for churn prevention, right?
Yeah.
So I think AI CDPs will completely be AI-ified, and at some point you may not even talk to use an interface. You would just talk to someone like Zoe, a human avatar, and tell her, Zoe, make sure all my data from these 3 channels ingested. Great, right? Make sure the data is mapped. Which ID strategies can I do? How do I want to unify the data? I want to go the household approach. Okay, do it on the household approach, right? Unify the data on the household level, not the individual level. Great. Now give me all the use cases for acquisition for a retailer in Western Germany, right? Now give me all campaigns that make sense, right? I think we will get there eventually. Simplification of a complex tool.
Yeah, and much faster, of course, and really like a super assistant helping you figure out where the priorities can be. Yeah, so I like that, because you're saying basically the short-term value of a CDP is really, in those personalization cases, in those high-value customer triage cases, and also in that, for example, excluding people that have bought a product already from advertising. So those are really like the short-term cases that you can really make already take advantage of. But you're saying also the long-term advantage is really to invest in it, because it is also the foundation for a powerful AI operation in your organization to be even more effective in terms of how you act on customer data. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's very fair.
So, okay, so great. I mean, what is for people maybe listening to this, and our audience is into customer journey management, of course, and understanding how do we manage the customer journeys? Like, what is a good starting point for a CDP? Like, when is it to kickstart a use case maybe aligned with that journey, or does it typically more start from a data team perspective? How can you say a little bit about that? Like, what is a good starting point for considering it?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't start from a data perspective. Then you end up in a theoretical 2-year academic project. What could and what should, right? Rather than what must happen. Look at your problems, which is usually reflected in your targets, right? Say a certain department has an upsell target, a churn prevention target.
Yeah.
And then think through a use case that can be better executed, assuming there's more personalization. And personalization can mean many things. It can mean more different content to different people. It can mean different channel to different people. A low-value customer may not call the hotline, but speak to a chatbot, right? Could be, right? That's a different incarnation of personalization, right?
Yeah.
Think through how personalization on the high level could solve for the problem you have in other ways, could help you deliver against your target. And then that defines the data sources you need, not the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Try to prioritize.
And that also fits perfectly with your use case focused approach, because then okay, I only need these data pockets.
Correct.
Also making it much faster to see results. Otherwise, you need to kind of migrate all your data somewhere. Yep.
Yeah. And then look at the CDP, which is business user focused, because in the end, IT is important to deploy and select, but IT doesn't want to bother with this inside out. So pick a CDP that has a simple UI, that is easy to use, where maybe AI supports that even further, right, and accelerates that. Look at the team. It's super important, right? We get RFPs all the time with 600 questions on every detail of technology you can imagine. But the most important thing is they completely ignore what kind of deployments has the vendor done, what SIs has the vendor worked with, where the teams are actually knowing each other, because humans matter still, right? It's not super AIfied yet. The deployment, the operating model, the incentive structures, the people. You look at the people. When you pick the school for your kid, you're not only looking at the name, you're also and only at the subject. You're looking at the teacher. It's the same here. Look at the people, because it's a painful experience deploying a CDP, whatever the vendor is.
And I like that, because also the adoption is super important. So I think also it needs to be easy enough to use also for a marketeer or for a channel manager to operate it. If they constantly need an IT guy to configure something, it's really hurting the adoption of the tool as well, I can imagine. So of course you might need IT to configure it and install it, but I think operating it should of course be as easy as possible, linked to the use cases that they are trying to address.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hey, and this is so similar to what we hear, because of course we also map out customer journeys, and then sometimes we also map out the underlying processes, like all the tools that operations teams have to work with, and then they need to migrate to a new platform, and then all people do in procurement typically is look at all the technical and functional requirements and price, and the only thing they don't look at is what do the people actually need to work with it.
Right.
And this is the most important element. So of course, because if they don't use it, your whole license is useless. So basically, so important, and so nice that you actually mentioned that, because it's a very crucial element to basically know who has actually end up using it, and can they actually work with it.
The software is at best 50% of the whole thing, at best, right? It's probably 60% is incentives and team on both ends, the vendor and the brand.
And I think what we also say all the time is you have to know why you're using it. Like, what are you trying to address? And not like, oh, we need to have a CDP because our competition has one. But we know we want to address this. We address this churn issue, or we address this loyalty thing, or we want to be more focused on A, B, and C. And maybe bringing it back to your Amazon example, like, can you maybe draw an analogy? Like, I'm not sure if you know if they use a CDP or not, but I mean, there's definitely some of the benefits that you experienced in your personal experience with Amazon are very similar to what you're trying to address with Zeotap, isn't it?
I mean, look, the way the Amazon customer service journey on the web or app, right? It's super aligned. Whether you do it on the website or app, it's the same. So it's already very different to most brands, right? The website is completely different from the app experience for most companies out there. Secondly, the moment you speak to an agent, the agent knows everything already, which means there's a real-time push of data from the website or app to the call center. Again, silos have been de-siloed. So I don't think Amazon needs a CDP, to be honest. And I've found one in our 4-year pure focus journey on CDP. I found one other German, actually, online e-commerce brand that really doesn't need a CDP, because they're so aligned and so focused on transporting. All it is establishing a data highway, an Autobahn in German, between your different teams, so that all the data that comes from interacting with customers is transported back and forth all the time. The right hand needs to know what the left hand is doing and thinking. That's it. And Amazon does it for years, because they're so big and so important. They've done a marvelous job at it.
Yeah, and if you build this in from day one, then of course it's already built in. But if you like 90% of the organizations have acquired solutions and tools, and with that created a siloed legacy of data pockets and systems, it's an impossible task to fix it. So then you need
my tool is the most important. My tool is the most. It's like in school, the teacher, every teacher had the most important subject, right?
So I think your promise is also like, if fixing silos or removing silos is near impossible. So I think on a use case based level, by just selecting the relevant data pockets, you can still be fairly quick with achieving results in terms of customer experience and commercial without having to migrate everything, which is a huge lead time. So yeah, that's a great promise from the Zeotap brand. So I think the very good point made there, Daniel. Well, yeah, thanks for this. It's great. I think it's also been super useful to talk to you about it. One question we always finish with is, one of the last questions is, who is the next guest? Maybe someone from Germany that you think is really a thought leader on connecting silos or customer experience in the German market or somewhere else that we should talk to and invite to this podcast?
Yeah, there's a German guy called Martin. He runs the company called Future Marketing. He's the CEO, and he's an expert at the cross section of privacy, MarTech, AdTech, CDP, DMP, and all this stuff. Not specifically CDP. He's seen a lot of CDP projects, a lot of journeys, a lot of different industries, retail, banking, telecom, and so on and so forth. And even though he's the CEO, I mean, he was not always CEO, so he had a career journey as well, obviously. And he has seen a lot of things, not only one brand, but many brands, many failures as well, which is always good to see things that don't go well.
Yeah.
We did a lot of mistakes too, right? It's not that we're perfect by no means. And he's very thorough and very detailed, but he can go high level and low level quickly. And given that Germany is so around privacy, and also we're all part of GDPR, so is the Netherlands, right? He knows exactly what you can do and what you can't do in very detail, right? So I think he could be a great guest.
Okay, well, we'll follow up with him, and maybe I'll follow up with you on getting him onto the show. It'd be nice to get some exposure in Germany as well.
Sure.
But we've already started that today, of course. Thanks, Daniel. Any final words? Any final recommendations, tips, advice that you have to any customer experience or customer journey, or what is it, channel managers or cross-functional collaboration people in organizations that you would like to share to finish off with?
Yeah, three things. One, speak to other customers that have done it, right? Learn from others where you don't have bias like you will always have with a vendor. Two, listen to the vendor and assess the vendor also on how pushy they are in a positive way on helping you design use cases. As an example, we try to differentiate from our competition by truly caring. This is a founder-run company, not a VP sales-led run company, right? So in a way, so we really want to make sure that the CDP is deployed, and we want to talk about use cases and about, sometimes customers say, oh, this is confidential, this is silly, right? Don't overdo it on confidentiality. Sign an NDA and that's it.
It's a partnership.
It's a partnership, right? We are, of course, the customer's king. That goes without saying. But we are seeing this 40 times every day. The brand is not. So leverage the vendor. And if they see that the vendor is a bit shy and doesn't want to do it, it's the wrong vendor. It's a way to select as well.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I hope you shed some very interesting insights on this today, and I'm very sure that a lot of people find this quite interesting and sometimes a bit complicated. But I think you did a great job in also making it relevant for why do you need it, how does it help your work on a day-to-day basis, and how does it help customer experience and business impact hand in hand. So thanks for that, Daniel, and
Awesome.
Speak to you soon. So that was another episode of the Promise Podcast, where we discuss effective ways for brands to deliver on their promise with a great customer experience and business impact. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a review. Check haroldlammers.com for more great content. Hope to see you again in the next episode. Until then, keep pushing to deliver on the promise.